You know, I've never used condominiums. Um, I'm still a virgin. I don't really plan on using them in the first place because I've heard they're very uncomfortable.
They're not condoms, they're condominiums. You live in them.
Like flats.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, okay. Moving on. Um, well, so welcome back to our reviews for for the Rocky franchise leading up to Creed 2. Um, and I'm just going to get straight into my thoughts. With the first thing that I noticed when I was watching it um, is that this movie is all about the rematch between Rocky and Apollo, right? Um, but at the end of the first one, they both agreed on no rematches, and then in the very next movie, their Apollo's all about rematches after they both agreed, right? He said no rematch, um, and that was honestly one of my concerns at the beginning of the movie. It's like they both agreed on a rematch. Now one of them is going against their word, and Rocky goes against his word later on. But thankfully, this movie truly explores why both of them changed their mind and all that, and it really goes in deeper to Apollo than the first one did, and that's something that I really liked about this movie. Is that he gets so much more screen time, I think, in this one. Um, I'd have to go back and rewatch the footage, but I'm pretty sure that he is in this movie a lot more than what he was in the first one, um, because it explores his reasons, his motivations in this movie. And I liked it so much that I honestly could have done with more Apollo in this movie, and that's one of my not complaints, like it's not a negative part of the movie, but it is one of my nitpicks that they could have this movie could have benefited more from having more of him in the movie. Because one of the best parts of this movie is that it focuses so well on the rivalry between these two. This is where the rivalry, like these two characters, really clash. This is the one where they really clash, and the movie does it so well. So that's why I think that it could have benefited more from having him in it more. Also, just on a side note, one of my favorite scenes that really uh, adds into this rivalry between them is when Rocky goes to Apollo's hospital bed and asks him if he gave him his best. Apollo says yes. That's a great moment. I love that moment of the movie. Um, and those are all my positives with the movie, with one little nitpick. But there is one huge problem that I have with the movie, and it's really the first act. Personally, I think the first act was a little rushed in that they get married, they have a kid, they find a place, and all that stuff. And just to some people, and maybe a lot of people, this won't be a problem. But for me, it is a problem because, as I said in the first one, I look at films with an analytical mind, and I was thinking that this is how I imagined it. The movie could have really had I would have been more invested if, boom, they find out, oh crap, we're pregnant, we've got a child on the way, and they're not married, right? And I know that Rocky is someone who follows religion and belief and stuff. So he would want to get married before the pregnancy, right? So they find out that she's pregnant. So and that can be like a mistake that weighs his mind, that weighs on him during the movie, and so the movie can end with them getting married after just having the kid. So in a way, he sort of redeems himself in the eyes of the Lord by then getting married as soon as he can, before or after the child is born. So I don't know. I just really would have liked a different first act, or I really would have liked them to stretch it out a little more because it just felt a little too rushed for me. But that's all my thoughts on the movie. Um, so now to get to the best part of these reviews, I will pass it off to my dad.
Okay, yeah, it's a really good movie. This the the movie, I agree with Josh, my son, on the bit where he goes to him in Rocky goes to Apollo in the bed, in his hospital bed, and says, did you give me my best? Give me your best, and he says yes, and that was a very it was a significant scene that sort of set the tone for the movie for me, and the fight was awesome. It was better than the first one, I believe, because it was more involved. They didn't rush it. They went through almost every round. You saw most of the rounds, and the end was, incredible. And so I agree with my son on that. And I love the bit in the movie where it sort of sets the scene for the movie. Next, when he's in the hallway, in the stairwell, and Mickey comes out banging his stick on the ground on who's there, and he tested him. He tested to see if he could fight, tested Rocky to see if he could fight, because he said he wanted to fight again. And his right eye was blind, basically, in his right eye. And he said no. He said, look, I can't do it with all conscience, My conscience is telling me no, I can't get you to go, because it'll be murder. You'll end up not just losing, you could die. So that was a significant scene for me. And then Mickey, when his wife, Rocky's wife, got sick and she went to hospital, and they're in the church hall there, and Mickey basically tells him that not only is he a good enough fighter, he believes he can win, basically. And he's a good coach. He's a good manager, a really good manager, and a friend. He becomes a friend in this film, a really good close friend in this film. Stayed with him most of the time that he was with his wife, and then at the end of it, where it starts the whole role of the fight, before the fight, the training and everything sets it all up, is where Adrian says to him, come here, come here. And it says, and with a big smile on his face, after the baby had been born, had him in his arms, had her in her arms, she says, win. And it lit the whole room up. Mickey says, what are we waiting for? Even Paulie reacted, and Rocky got a great big smile on his face and said, right, that's it, let's go. And you could tell the intensity, was that he was going to do his best to win this time. It was like the beginning of his
win.
What are we waiting for? Take this!
The beginning of his life, basically. With that, I'll give it back to Josh. Oh yeah, the piece in the film, there was one bit I didn't like in the film, which is not necessarily a negative, but it's definitely, they could have done it better within the makeup scene and all the actors hassling him and pushing him. I think it was very unprofessionally done, that part of the movie. It wasn't very professionally done. It could have been done better. Much better than that, They didn't have to go through blow by blow, embarrassing the poor bloke, And so that's it. Now I'll give it back to Josh.
All right, so yet again a successful performance by my dad. I really enjoy his presence in these reviews. I hope you guys do as well. I mean, it's only our second review, so we've still got a fair bit to go. So there's a lot to do. Anyway, are you guys excited for Creed 2? Because we definitely are, and we're going to keep rolling these reviews out. So we will see you in our review for Rocky 3.